Recording in progress.
Governor Chief Compton, 2 o'clock, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. I'll get to it. Jeez.
Yes, sir.
All right, it is 2 o'clock. So let me call to order the State of Nevada Commission on Homeland Security meeting scheduled for today, May 12th, 2026, time being 2 p.m. And we will kick it off with the roll call.
This is Shreen Whipple for the record. Governor Joe Lombardo.
Here.
Sheriff Kevin McMahill.
Here.
Sheriff Darren Balaam. Colonel Kyle Serfolio.
Here.
Todd Vazulio.
Here.
Mitchell Fox.
Here.
Chief Fernando Gray.
Here.
Dr. Khan.
Present.
Chief Richard Edwards.
Here.
Richard Perkins.
Here.
Harriet Vegas. Chief Billy Samuels.
Present.
George Togliatti.
Present.
James Chrisley.
Here.
Patricia Wade. Bill Welch. Karen Burke.
Here.
Mike Matthews.
Here.
Skip Daly. Chris Epson. I saw you. Where'd you go? Chris, are you here?
Yes, Chris Stellato here.
PK O'Neill.
Here.
Bert Carroll.
Here.
Brett Compton.
Present.
Christopher Del Zotto.
Here.
Samantha Laddick.
Here.
You have quorum.
Ibsen didn't respond.
Hey, Miss Whipple, I think you misidentified Chris Ibsen. So I don't think Chris Ibsen came on.
Okay, thank you. Chris Epson, are you present?
And also, can you ask for Darren Balaam one more time?
Darren Balaam? No. Bill Welch, I see you have entered.
All right. Thanks for doing that. We'll move on. Move on to agenda item number 2, the first opportunity for public comment. First public comment is limited to comments on items on the agenda. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under public comment period unless the matter itself has been specifically included on as an agenda item. And we will limit comments to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody there in Carson City?
We're in Carson City, sir.
Anybody here in Las Vegas? And then I will we'll give it a few seconds for total time for on the phone and or online. Samantha, am I still required to wait this 60 to 90 seconds? Thought we fixed that.
Oh, I was under the impression we were supposed to give it a little time, but I will check on that for you before the next meeting.
All right. Because I know we don't have to list phone numbers or anything now, so for the last session. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 3, approval of minutes. Do we have any questions or concerns from any board members on the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Dr. Khan, for the record, so moved.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Bill Welch. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion for approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And against, nay. Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, statewide National Incident Management System, also known as NIMS compliance report, which is an information only item. And will you be briefing that, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Brett Thompson for the record. So this will be the report for first quarter, this or calendar year 2026. In this quarter, we only had 2,211 students processed through. That's predominantly due to the DHS shutdown, which occurred the 14th of February through the 30th of April. The online platform was turned off at that time, and really these numbers only represent the training that was available to occur in January and very early February. Are there any questions?
Hey, Brett, why would the online platform be shut down?
So when they shut down all of their systems. They include the online platform, the reimbursement system, the grants.
So they give us disposition for later in the year because of that?
It's just volume based. There's no additional quotas or changes. It's just a matter of people had to then sequence in, and we had to find alternate ways for people to qualify, which we did do.
Okay.
Dates.
All right, well, thank you. There are no questions. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, drone as a first responder for discussion only. Carrie, are you on the line? Are you presenting?
Good morning, or afternoon, sir. I am on the line, but Lieutenant Dan Saggiamo will be presenting this topic.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, we'll see the obnoxious vehicle. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. All right, good afternoon, everybody. For the record, my name is Lieutenant Dan Saggiamo, and I currently oversee the technical operations section at LVMPD, which includes Fusion Watch as well as drones. I appreciate the opportunity to brief you today on LVMPD's DFR program and really give you an overview about how we're using this technology. All right, so what is DFR? At the most basic level, a drone as a first responder, or DFR, means dispatching drones to calls for service, much like we would do for a patrol officer. Once we receive a 911 call, a pilot can immediately launch a drone to the scene and begin providing that live intelligence for the responding officers. And on average, the drone arrives before patrol officers around 70% of the time. And obviously this leads to better decision-making, it improves officer safety, and it helps de-escalate situations. So a little bit about our drone history. It's really evolved significantly over the last several years. Initially, our drones were primarily used for crime scene documentation and mapping operations. And from there, in 2023, we transitioned into the mobile deployments, where drones were being deployed from the trunk of patrol vehicles. And as of now, in 2026, we have opened the Drone Operations Center and have a full fleet of remotely operated drones. And I'm glad to say that LVMPD currently operates the largest DFR program in the country. So one thing that makes our program unique is the staffing model. We operate with a combination of both commissioned and civilian pilots. And this allows us to maintain a 7-day-a-week coverage across both day and swing shift. Most of our missions are flown remotely, but we still maintain that ability to send that commissioned officer into the field for major events or areas that fall outside of our dock coverage. And at the end of the day, the mission is pretty simple: make patrol safer and faster. Right now, we cover approximately 130 square miles using our 12 dock locations that are positioned throughout the valley. Each location contains what we call a hive, which is 3 docked drones. So in total, we currently operate 38 remote drones. Each hive location, our drones have a 2-mile operational radius. And for the areas that fall outside those zones, we still have the 16 mobile drones to deploy from the vehicles. Our pilots monitor calls for service in real time directly through a CAD integration. So as calls are received, pilots are triaging them and looking to deploy the closest available drone. And as you can see on the screen, every red icon represents an active call for service. With a few clicks, the pilot can review the incident details, identify the nearest drone, and launch directly to that location. One of our more valuable drone integrations is with ShotSpotter. Our pilots receive gunshot detection alerts before a traditional 911 call is ever even generated. This allows the drone to launch almost immediately and begin searching for victims, suspects, or fleeing vehicles while patrol is still en route. Our setup also supports multi-drone operations and live video sharing. We have the approval of using one pilot to fly 4 drones, which was also a first in the nation. At the same time, live drone video can be shared with officers, it can be shared with supervisors, or even partner agencies like the fire department through ready links and QR codes like you see on the screen. And this provides a huge tactical advantage for patrol units so they can pre-plan during a dynamic call. So this slide really highlights how quickly the program has grown operationally. You can see between 2024 and 2025, flights and hours are up between 140 to 180%. And so far in 2026, we've already approaching 10,000 flights. We've assisted in more than 440 arrests, and the drone continues to arrive on scene before patrol officers around 70% of the time. The DFR program operates alongside Fusion Watch, which serves as our real-time crime center. That integration allows drone operations to combine with technologies like our public safety cameras, ShotSpotter, and license plate readers to create a larger operational picture across the valley. As you can see, what started in 2007 as essentially one computer has evolved into one of the largest real-time crime centers in the country, with the addition of our Drone Operations Center, which you see at the bottom. We also work very closely with our local fire partners. During fire calls, drones can provide live thermal imagery to help identify hotspots and assist with the boots on the ground. We can also share that live video feed with fire command staff, which has significantly improved coordination between police and fire. The drone program also supports a large number of special events throughout the year. Some of these larger events include supporting the Rise Festival, and that had 20,000 attendees per night. It was a 3-day event. The Con Expo, which had approximately 140,000 attendees. The Rock and Roll Marathon, which had more than 30,000 runners. And then NASCAR this year with over 100,000 spectators.
Excuse me, this is Patty Wade. I was having technical difficulties, but I've now joined the meeting. Sorry to interrupt.
We also support F1 every year, not only with drones, but with also our counter UAS Dedrone City to identify pilots that are flying illegally. And of course, we always support America's Party, which is our New Year's Eve celebration on the Strip. Transparency and accountability are critical components of the drone program. All drone flights are documented, tracked, and flight data is publicly available through LVMPD's website, like you see on the screen. So for LVMPD, maintaining public trust is absolutely essential. Again, I appreciate everybody's time today and appreciate the opportunity to provide you with an overview of the program. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Dr. Khan, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
The drones, as you know, the strip is very close to the airport. I know these drones, I'm presuming, are low flying, but is there any risk between the flights coming in and the drones in the area?
Yes, sir. It's a great question. All of the airports are considered a zero grid, so we don't fly anywhere near the airports, and we're flying at an altitude so low that even if we did, there would be no impact with any type of plane. But we avoid that area, and we have to get special permission through the FAA to fly anywhere near airport.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Hey, Kevin, I don't know who's better to answer this, you or Dan or Carrie. Has this adjusted the number of hours that air support provides to as far as service?
Kevin McMahill for the record. It has not really adjusted the time that air support is up and available. Obviously, as you well know, right now we're sort of entering into that time where search and rescue is significantly increasing with the warm weather that we have out here. But at some point or another, we do expect that the drones will also allow us to have to leverage the helicopter less in the near future as we move forward. But listen, the other truth is that Chief Samuels is calling me for cool pictures of his fires all the time now, so I can't really help but help him out when it comes up.
I wonder if that's another deployment mechanism for our fellow jurisdictions like Henderson, North Las Vegas, when they independently request air support.
Yeah, so again, Kevin McMahill for the record, we're actively working with Henderson and North Las Vegas and others to put their resources here to expand the program across the valley.
Oh, cool. Good job on that. That thing's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, Carrie, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, multi-agency biolab response.
Thank you very much, sir, and good afternoon. Kerry Underwood for the record. I am the Executive Director of the Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center. Share my screen. Confirmation, can we see the presentation?
Not yet. There you go.
Okay, I will be discussing the multi-agency response to the reported Chinese biological laboratory earlier this year in 2026. Before we get into that, just for anybody in the room, and I'll keep it short, I assume everyone knows what the Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center is. It is a DHS recognized fusion center designated by the governors here in the state of Nevada, hosted here at LBMPD, currently with 36 agencies engaged. 19 full-time assets have full-time personnel assigned. You can see the breakdown there. A total 15 federal agencies engaged here, 4 state agencies, 15 local agencies, and 2 other agencies. Our capabilities, you just heard on the Real-Time Intelligence Center and the Drone Operations Center. We also do terrorism investigations, analysis, emergency management, outreach, education, and corrections intelligence coordination out of our center. Specifically now talking about the Chinese biolab investigation and why I wanted you to know who all we have here in the Fusion Center, because in our counterterrorism section, which is multi-agency here, was advised by Las Vegas FBI on January 16th, 2026 of a lead that they had received about a possible biological laboratory or storage of harmful biological materials at a residence located in the northeast part of the valley in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have years of working together with the FBI in order to leverage resources that are most applicable. Our team here, they knew would be quickly able to get search warrants if the information in the lead was corroborated, given a lot of the past operations that we've done, and that way we could seamlessly move it state or federal as needed. Our investigators and agents in counterterrorism, as well as our analysts and DHS and Southern Nevada Health District analysts, working together, quickly learned that those homes that were alleged were associated with a subject named Jiabei Zhu, or also known as Jesse Zhu, also known as Kwang He, also known as David He, directly or those residences through his significant other, Xiaoyan Wang. We further learned that Jiabei Zhu, was currently being held in federal prison in California on charges associated with fraudulent COVID test kit production. That was a case that was actively being pursued, and I'll update that later in the presentation. We then learned that Zhu had previously been convicted of intellectual property theft in Canada in 2013, associated with the North American dairy market, where the intellectual property associated with that particular market was stolen and provided back to the government of China. He was found guilty, subsequently ordered to pay $330 million fine, at which time he fled Canada to the United States and assumed a different name. He still had an active warrant in Canada at the time of our operation. We then learned that Zhu was associated with 2 biological laboratories in the state of California, one in Fresno and another one in Reedley, California, between the years of 2015 and 2023. There was a fire at the Fresno lab in 2022, leading Zhu to move items to both the Reedley location as well as beginning to move them to locations in Las Vegas, Nevada. During that time, he set up a company called Prestige Biotech Industries in Las Vegas. He and Wang purchased their residences located at 979 Sugar Springs and 971 Temple View. We received reporting from the FBI specifically that there were items in the garage at the Sugar Springs residence that included hazardous biological materials and testing equipment, and that they had allegedly made folks sick. Now, for those not knowledgeable about the Las Vegas geography, those residences are up in the Hollywood and Washington kind of major cross-section streets, just to give you some perspective. The Reedley lab. So when we found that link, we needed to learn more about the Reedley lab incident. We quickly learned that it was discovered by code enforcement officers in Reedley, California in late 2022 and ultimately disrupted in 2023. The lab was a 20,000 square foot industrial building with no permits to do any of the activities that they were doing there. They were ultimately able to get a warrant in March, several months later in March of 2023. The delays to getting the warrant were largely because it was difficult for everyone to determine who was responsible for taking action on this particular type of situation and on the things that they observed in there. And these are all important factors for how we navigated ours, as well as for potential future legislation issues. Code enforcement observed when they walked in 2022, numerous medical grade freezers, lab testing equipment such as hoods, centrifuges, personnel wearing full PPE, numerous genetically modified mice for lab testing purposes, and code enforcement officers in Reedley specifically reported observing a container that was externally marked, a freezer container externally marked as Ebola that had Mylar bags inside of that container. The local officials had to get their congressional representatives involved in order to get the CDC ultimately to take action. When CDC did, as part of this warrant, they disposed of approximately 103 tons of general waste that included lab equipment and 448 gallons of medical biological waste. It's important to note, none of these materials were tested. They were all just destroyed as biological toxins from over 30 refrigerators and freezers. Subsequently, to give you some idea of what the labeling on the items that were destroyed, again, not tested, labels, chlamydia, E. coli, tuberculosis, pneumonia, meningitis, streptococcus, and numerous other biological hazards. Hep B, Hep C, dengue fever, HIV, herpes, RSV, rubella, and COVID were among the infectious viral agents, and malaria, and infectious parasite. Now, again, only labels, not tested. There were congressional... Yes, sir.
Terry, why is that? Was there a lack of personal protection equipment? Why was that decision made?
ultimately all part of it's all in this massive congressional inquiry document, Governor. And from the sound of it, and by the way, if you ask CDC versus if you ask code enforcement versus you ask all these different people, they all have different answers, but it looks like no one was prepared for the enormity of stuff that they had found in there. And ultimately they felt that the safest decision was to just destroy everything rather than put people in the community at risk by collecting it and testing it. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, because I think the steps we took to safely collect all the items, which I'll get to in a minute, I think we did that effectively. They naturally had a lot more than we had at our location.
You were able to get representative samples for prosecution?
Yeah, I'll get to that section here in an upcoming slide. Yes, sir. But they did not. And ultimately, CDC's position is that they did it out of abundance of caution, basically to safeguard the community and dispose of those wastes rather than put people at risk. And by the way, we know this because we had multiple telephone calls with Reedley code enforcement and the law enforcement leaders there in Reedley who have some serious concerns about the way that their particular investigation was handled.
So also with that being said, do you have any idea how it was destroyed?
I do not have those specifics. I don't. I can get them for you, Governor. I don't have that. I know that they did a controlled destruction there on site.
This is Dr. Khan. I have a quick question. These are extremely dangerous biomaterials that you have listed. Do we know how did he have access to this? How easy it was to get this material? You mentioned the whole list of almost all known critically dangerous materials.
Again, that is what was on the labels, and none of which was tested. And the federal investigation out of Reedley focused on the test kits, the fraudulent test kits piece. And we did not see any significant investigation into whether or not those materials were actually there or how he would have potentially gotten them.
And where did he get the resources to purchase these massive equipments in that 20,000 square foot area and elsewhere?
The best answer that I can give you, Dr. Khan, is that should be part of a federal investigation, likely being run out of FBI Sacramento.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Chris Delzato, are you on the line?
Yes, sir.
Any updates?
Yes, sir.
Any updates?
Yeah. So far, everything Carrie Underwood has briefed is pretty much accurate. So in terms of the funding, I know that both entities at Jiao Beiju Incorporated, the two labs, both received, and this is public information, millions of dollars from Chinese state-run entities. And the two lab entities are known, the Prestige Biotech, and the other one is Universal Meditech. So both of those entities received millions of dollars, as was the one address that the search warrant was conducted on the weekend of January 31st. That house was purchased, that was 971 Temple View, with monies from China in the amount of $800,000. So in terms of the funding mentioned about, I think there was a question about how was this equipment purchased. I know there was much funding from overseas.
Okay, yeah, I understand the UOFO on it, but I guess my question, I appreciate the information you just provided, Chris. I guess the question was, do you know any idea of the progress of the investigation? Like, is there?
Yeah, okay. I didn't want to jump into Carrie's presentation, but okay, so January 6th, just to kind of give everybody kind of a timeline, we received a referral from Sacramento field office, And it really was what Carrie Underwood was just mentioning, the code enforcement officer that's been, I mean, her public name is out there, but she was the one that initially identified the lab in Reedley. And when she was on a normal code enforcement check, which is what he was just outlining with what was found in the building and so forth. So she came forward on January 6th and said, hey, I got a call from an informant. That informant has knowledge of these two residences that we later did the state search warrants on, which was the Sugar Springs Drive and the Temple View Drive. She said that she had worked in those houses, and specifically at the Sugar Springs Drive, she had come to know that there was some refrigerators, what looked like chemicals and lab testing equipment and so forth, stuff that was similar to what was outlined in the Reedley Lab congressional report back in 2023. So with that information, we shared that obviously with Las Vegas Metro and other partners, and we started vetting the information, created the ops plan, got all the resources so we could execute this 2 search warrants that weekend, the weekend of January 31st. And so we hit Sugar Springs and Temple View, recuperating. We took a bunch of items, which I'll go through in just a second, from both addresses. And then our FBI National Lab was on scene collecting those items to ensure that they were packaged the right way and so forth and so on. So they took those items on February 3rd, or received them on February 3rd. On the 20th, sir, the FBI lab issued their report. That report was shared with Las Vegas Metro. Subsequently, we had 2 follow-up calls with Dr. Richard Bull, who was the biologist out of the FBI lab that authored the report, and he kind of went through his report and his methodology. And so what was found out of that lab was, I'll put them in 4 tranches of evidence.
Hey, Chris, we don't have to belabor that. I just wanted to get a sense of what the status of the investigation was going. It sounds like they're moving right along. So, thanks for that info. I appreciate that.
So the status of the investigation. So there's multiple tracks, right? So there's obviously a national security case, which I'm not going to comment on here. There's the federal case related to the potential for a bioweapon, and then there's the criminal case involving what the gentleman spoke of, like how did he get all these samples that he was storing at the Sugar Springs Drive. So recent developments, issue on the case out of the Eastern District of California, who was found guilty on 12 counts related to wire fraud, distribution of misbranded, mislabeled medical devices, making false statements. That's all related to how he was importing COVID tests illegally and misbranding them, putting made in the USA on them. And then other things that we've done is we're continuing to look over documentary evidence with Metro. There's a bunch of evidence related to the individual that was charged with possessing a firearm, being a foreign national. The work to review digital and forensic evidence regarding that. There's financial bank accounts being analyzed regarding that individual, and then the biological material that we had taken as part of the FBI lab's investigation was shipped back to Vegas, as Metro wanted to conduct additional testing into some of the things that were found there. So that was provided. In addition to that, we have a Mandarin linguists that are continuing the translation of many of the evidence that we've come in contact with, translating them to English. I think we're about 95% done with that. There's some outstanding subpoenas related to financial institutions, and we continue to trace the money movements related to those subpoenas. So that's some of the high points, sir. I hope I answered your question.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that. Our concern is obviously the individual himself and whether he's out and about being without surveillance and how we can prevent it in the future. So thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Would you like me to continue?
Yeah, thank you, Kerry.
No worries, sir. Current slide there. We learned that Zhu attempted to open a lab in 2023 under PBI at 1807 West Charleston. Ultimately, though, the Reedley investigation led to Zhu's arrest, and the application for that lab was rescinded by a representative of that LLC. So that lab never actually went all the way through. We learned through the investigation that items were moved from California to the Charleston location, and subsequently learned that they were moved from the location to the garage at the Sugar Springs location. We discovered, and Chris covered a lot, so I'll try not to be redundant. We did discover those properties were being managed by a man named Ori Solomon, who was arrested for a variety of different charges, and that's who Chris talked about. We also learned that the homes were being used as short-term rentals, but with no access to the garage at the Sugar Spring. It was specifically barred from being able to do that. We even looked at energy consumption at the Sugar Springs address, and it was consistent with spikes that would be consistent with laboratory equipment being used. I'm telling you all of this because that's the corroboration of information that ultimately led to our search warrant, which was effected on January 31st. SNCTC, LVMPD SWAT, Armor, FBI Las Vegas, FBI hazardous and evidence recovery teams from multiple locations, the lab scientist Chris talked about, 92nd CST, as well as a CST team from California, Southern Nevada Health District, DHS, all out there over a multi-day search warrant to collect the items and ultimately sanitize the 979 Sugar Hill location when we were done collecting samples. 1,266 documented samples taken out of that garage. Items that included over 400 what appear to be lab samples that may have been submitted by people, which we have to take a look into how they came in possession of those. A biosafety cabinet, centrifuges, freezers, all the same types of equipment that were in Reedley, which corroborates that a lot of that equipment very likely came from there. And Chris mentioned the 971 Temple View. We further got information that address had test kit information corroborating the federal investigation and charges against him in California, was still importing test kits from China. Sorry, I was behind on my slides. Testing process. Chris already talked about the 1,266 samples, the 15 items. Ultimately, the lab chose to test because they were specifically looking to see if the items were indicative of weaponizing biological items or that type of thing. The 15 items they tested, the only positive results back we got were for influenza A and influenza B, and specifically not strains that would be potentially mass harm causing or significant problems there. So ultimately, their report that he's talking about confirmed that what was in the garage, at least what was at the Las Vegas location, was not indicative of a weaponizing biological materials. At that time, LVMPD requested that all of those samples, including the ones that were tested, be sent back because we want to look at a much larger scope, investigative wise, of what those items were, how they got them, and why ultimately they had these things. A lot of big level questions that we're still trying to work with FBI to answer. We had those items shipped to the Southern Nevada Public Health Lab where they're currently being stored. The team is working on the process that all the labs agree to. The plan right now is ultimately to send representative samples of items that would be a larger scale to the Nevada Public Health Lab in Reno, where a splitting can be done, and you have to have it lined up right away to send them to a federal lab, with Los Alamos is the one that we've identified that's willing to do a timely testing, full genomic sequencing, and ultimately get a much more representative testing process to try to identify everything that they might have been trying to collect or might have been doing with all of the samples that they had in their possession in our garage here in Las Vegas. And we also did learn, as Chris briefed, that Zhu has been, in fact, convicted on 1 count conspiracy, wire fraud, 8 counts of substantive wire fraud, 2 counts distributing adulterated and misbranded medical devices, and 1 count of making false statement to the FDA. So the California federal case, he has been convicted. Sentencing is due in August of this year. Last slide, key takeaways for us.
Kerry,
Yes,
Kerry,
sir.
was he identified as the owner of Sugar Hill?
Through a company. So there's one of the properties was owned by Xiaoyan Wang, which is his significant other, who fled to China when the Reedley thing happened. The other one was owned by one of the companies opened up in his name. It was affiliated through a company, but yes, they are both associated or connected to him.
So he would be charged just by the presence of that lab because, you know, as far as public dangers, because it was a rental property, right?
Which ultimately was the basis for us serving our search warrant, right? Identifying that we had the reasonable suspicion to do that.
Do you know if there was an abatement done on that for destruction, the house?
I don't want to misinform. I know that we sanitized it and got a sanitization company to actually effectively render it clean. And actually the residents went back into both locations.
Really?
Yes, sir. Yes. Because we took everything out and then we brought in a company that specializes in hazardous material cleanup services. Yes.
Okay.
You mentioned a couple takeaways for you, Governor. I would just add these discussions that we're having here. Number one, Chinese government clearly has an interest in biological laboratories, unlicensed biological laboratories. I would say if there were multiple in California and one here in Las Vegas, we probably are only seeing the tip of the iceberg. There are congressional representatives right now trying to actually enact legislation to clearly identify who is responsible for these from a federal perspective, and how we go about better regulating and not only that, better investigating and looking for them. There's clearly subnational engagement from the Chinese government with leaders in Nevada, public safety agencies in Nevada. We know from our State Department partners here at SNCTC that members of the consulate in California have frequently done travel to meet with sub-national level individuals without getting the proper approvals from the State Department to do that travel, which means they're doing it intentionally. And we also know of multiple instances of transnational repression. That again is where you see intimidation and violence committed on individuals, dissidents living in our community, directed by the Chinese government. We know that all of those things exist here in Nevada, as well as other attempts to get at our critical infrastructure. We also recognize that state and local law enforcement has got to be engaged on the counterintelligence mission because the impact and effect is really affecting our community in such a way that our law enforcement agencies, just like terrorism once upon a time, this type of foreign intelligence activity is having an impact on our community to the point where state and locals have got to be fully engaged with our federal partners on this mission set. And then lastly, again, we were able to move on this so quickly because of the multi-agency environment that's already created here, where we're used to working together on these threats to apply the right tool to the right situation in order to get at the best outcome. If we didn't already have FBI, DHS, Health District, and everybody already working in the Fusion Center, this would have been significantly more difficult. And naturally, our outstanding tasks, not Chris's investigative stuff that he briefed, but ours is obviously doing a little bit more comprehensive testing of the items that were found and trying to get really the answer of what all did they have and why did they have it, so that we can try to determine what our best next steps are going to be.
Fantastic.
Thanks, sir.
We have any member questions of Mr. Eric Underwood? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Kerry. Appreciate that. And I see your name is under item number 7, electrical substation attack.
Yes, sir. That presentation will be given by Counterterrorism Section Lieutenant Cody Thompson.
How you doing, Governor? I appreciate you guys. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to present this to you guys today. I'm going to give a brief overview of the details of this case. Let me share my screen with you real quick. Are you guys able to see that?
Yep.
Okay. Like Director Underwood said, my name's Lieutenant Cody Thompson. I'm over the Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Section, and I'll go ahead and get through this case here. So this is in reference to the Boulder City substation attack that happened earlier this year on February 19th, 2026 at approximately 10 a.m. It was at the City of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power McCullough Switch Station, which is located at 875 El Dorado Valley Drive in Searchlight, Nevada. Details of the call stated the male crashed through the fence with his vehicle and came to a stop before making it to the transformers. After coming to a stop, 2 gunshots were heard by security. Boulder City Police responded and found a male who was deceased from apparent gunshot wound to the head inside of his vehicle. The Meade Adelanto Transmission Project is a 202-mile alternating current transmission line that extends between the southwest terminus at Adelanto Substation in Southern California and the northeast terminus at Marketplace Substation, approximately 17 miles southwest of Boulder City. The participants in this power line are Anaheim at 14%, Banning at 1%, Burbank 12%, Colton 3%, Glendale 11%, Los Angeles 36%, Pasadena 9%, Riverside 14%. Boulder City PD, Boulder City Fire Department, Las Vegas Armor, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Armor, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Counterterrorism, and our JTTF partners responded to the scene and tasked.
Hey, Cody.
Yes, sir.
Are you changing slides? Because we're still seeing the original one.
No, I'm going to the second one now, sir.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have some notes here that aren't all on the slide. So our suspect here, the decedent, Dawson Maloney, that's him. He was born in October 16th of 2022. He was 23 years old at the time of this event. He lived at 115 East Line Road in Ballston Lake, New York. Maloney was listed as a missing person from Albany, New York, just prior to this event. The detective from that missing person case was contacted, and he advised that Maloney had sent some concerning text messages to his friends and family with suicidal ideations. One of the texts that I have up there on the screen that he sent was, "You deserve better than this. I know that. You didn't do anything to deserve having a terrorist son." Maloney rented a Nissan Altima and traveled from Albany, New York on the 12th of that month. He was tracked going to Indiana, Ohio, Nebraska, Colorado, and then Cedar City, Utah, before arriving in Boulder City on the 17th. Maloney had rented a hotel room at the El Rancho Boulder Hotel, located at 725 Nevada Highway, Boulder City, checking in on the 17th and then checking out on the 19th. Next slide here. After arriving in Boulder City, Maloney took an Uber to Henderson, and he attempted to rent a large cargo van, but was ultimately denied because he didn't have an active credit card, fortunately for us. Maloney then took an Uber to a body armor store that was located in Henderson, where he purchased some soft body armor, which was actually also found on his body where his vehicle was in place. So some of the significant evidence when we arrived on scene and we got our search warrants in order from the vehicle. Some of the weapons that he had inside there were including a Beretta semi-automatic shotgun, a Spikes Tactical AR-15 style rifle, a Maverick Arms 88 pump shotgun, 2 flamethrowers, extensive ammunition for all of his firearms that were both loose and stuffed into mags that were pre-staged, body armor, and a tactical vest. In the car, there was some of this stuff, but the majority of it was at the hotel for the explosive components. There was thermite, ammonium nitrate, uronitrate, mineral oil, and galvanized steel pipes. The explosive device components and ammunition that Maloney ordered appeared to be in preparation for a much larger incident that ultimately the subject did not go forward with. Maloney appeared to have created a fake company, Maloney Botanicals, in order to obtain some of these precursors for the IED. Here in the next slide, as you can see there at the top left part of your screen, that's one of his flamethrowers that he had. Bottom left part of the screen is a quick view on the inside of the car. It was very cluttered, but as you can see, he had a lot of loose ammunition, firearms all over the place, kind of scattered throughout the vehicle. Those are some of the magazines that he had in the vehicle just to the right. And off to the left, both at the top and the bottom there's some of the explosive components that he had in the hotel room. Although many of the items in Maloney's vehicle and hotel room were precursors for an IED or improvised explosive devices, it was apparent to the LVMPD armor detectives that he lacked the knowledge on how to effectively construct or deploy these materials to their full capacity. Throughout the investigation, it became apparent that Maloney's mental health issues may have also played a factor in this event not playing out to the scale that he had planned, and I'm going to go into some of those details. All right, so some of the significant analysis from his laptop that he had. Most of the content on the laptop was related to his work in law school. Numerous documents regarding violent and radical ideologies. Some appear to be academic or professional works, but also include manuals and manifestos encouraging violent action. Some of the more violent and radical documents, such as Telegram publications or the Garden issues, appear to have been deleted just before Maloney carrying out the attack. Our digital forensic lab here at Las Vegas Metro was able to recover details on the publications, such as titles, but not the full content. Among the deleted publications were the Hard Reset and Make It Count. These are both REMV or racially motivated violent extremist accelerationist publications. The Hard Reset references the reset of society. Both publications provide encouragement and surface level instruction for attacking electrical facilities. Extremist content discovered in the span of ideologies such as RIMV, racially motivated violent extremism, accelerationism, environmentalism, eco-terrorism, nihilism, and some references to the occult. That was just some of the things that he was dabbling in, and I'll get more into that. For unknown reasons, during several periods during 2025 and 2026, Maloney's laptop took thousands of screenshots of the laptop's activity at this time. Most of the activity appeared to be related to school projects or for using ChatGPT or other AI tools to write a fictional story. However, several of the screenshots indicated using ChatGPT to research critical power substations listed in the U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission report, which is where we think he got this particular power substation that he wanted to attack. Documents found on Maloney's devices include 10 to 12 pages and cover various topics such as school, family, chores, to-do lists, as well as planning and motivation. In a document dated 12/5 of 2023, Maloney makes an apparent plans to carry a mass shooting at one of his classes at the university that he was attending. Through different investigative means, Maloney also, we confirmed that some of the planning that he had for his schools was actually targeted at the school that he was attending. Some of the things he said, he was marking outsides of walls to see where he could shoot through the walls and hit his intended victims, and using bike locks to lock the doors and things of that nature. In a document dated 12/20 and 23, Maloney mentions critical power stations and the effect on large populations within the United States. Maloney discusses always feeling like the odd one out, and he said that he felt like he was indoctrinated in his youth to three separate ideologies. Evidence found throughout his devices shows Maloney had exposure to eco-terrorism, RIMV, like I mentioned, accelerationist, and potentially incel and NVE ideologies. And we've briefed several times that, as you guys know, the nihilistic, violent, extremist ideologies is the fastest growing, probably scariest thing we deal with right now online. In these documents, Maloney references the eco-fascist movement, which also includes a lot of anti-Semitic ideologies. Maloney named his operation as Operation Oz. He discusses having previously wanted to carry out the attack with the sole goal of killing as many people as possible. But then he writes, some wonderful alien presence told him, you can get such a higher body count if you just wait and follow me. Maloney never names this alien presence, but did refer to a friend upstairs as in his end of life video that makes him, that has basically talked him out of doing the attack at his intended university. He stated the best time to take action would be during July due to the temperatures and the effect of the electrical grid being taken offline in Las Vegas and Los Angeles, believing that it would have a greater political and socioeconomical impact. He originally planned for the Boulder City attack in July of 2025, and we don't know, obviously, because we can't talk to him, and nothing shows in the evidence why he did not carry out the attack at that time. Maloney references Dune, the science fiction series where mankind wages war against artificial intelligence, and thinking machines. I'm going to go down to inside his hotel room there in Boulder City. He had a plethora of eco-fascist and RIMV ideological material and literature, a lot of eco-terrorism literature, anti-Semitic literature, and then some kind of instruction manuals that are very similar to the anarchist cookbook in a lot of ways. So it's all a lot of accelerationist movement literature that he was getting himself into. So the next slide, significant iPhone videos. He had a 10-minute end of life video. Maloney identifies several Boulder City locations as well as the electrical substation targets. He obviously didn't attack any of the places in Boulder City that he had listed. We don't know why. In several videos, he repeated that he stated that he intended to die during this attack. He mentions almost doing something like this before, which is likely a reference to the plans to attack the university they attended. 2 videos from May of 2025 show mental instability and discussing him chickening out. Through the plethora of videos and documents that he have, you can see a steady decline in this kid's mental health, and he's obviously clearly conflicted. He had a lot of this literature is contradictory, and he kind of bounces back and forth between one and the other. And he mentions a lot that he himself doesn't believe in one, and then he does believe in the other, but he believes parts of this one or parts of that one. So he was a clearly conflicted kid, obviously, and then mixing with his mental health status that was showing to be in decline since about 2018. In a video from August 2023, Maloney attempted to build a Glock firearm from individual parts and a 3D printer. He ended up breaking one of the pieces, so he ended up using that Glock as a prop for a lot of his videos. The investigation confirmed that Maloney previously planned an attack at his university, like we mentioned, potentially during his psychology class in which he had grievances with his teacher. Digital evidence located during the investigation showed a significant amount of animal cruelty videos, mass shooting videos, gore videos, which are all consistent with nihilistic violent extremism, or NVE. It's the biggest trend that we're seeing right now with these kids that are getting radicalized online. Information was located that he had been prepping since 2021, and he was having feelings of committing an attack since about 2018. Albany and Saratoga County have no history of any kind of diagnosed mental health issues or records of Maloney. During the interview with the girlfriend of Maloney's roommate, she stated that Maloney's behavior started to change around the end of 2025, skipping class, becoming more sheltered, acting more aggressive and violent towards friends. All the signs of someone who's these types of kids that are indicative of mental health issues. Although no mental health diagnosis was ever given, everyone that we talked to believed that Maloney was slowly showing signs of mental instability. He had paranoia. He made paranoia statements of being followed to Nevada. And through the entire investigation, every lead that we ran down, it shows that he was alone. There's no evidence that shows that he came out here with anyone from New York. He was alone during that trip. And from his the different interviews that our partners helped us out with in New York, his family upbringing was relatively normal. And some of the key takeaways, sir. Maloney seemed to have an undiagnosed declining mental health condition coupled with his apparent online radicalization. Although Maloney had several detailed plans, it seems that his declining mental health contributed to him not being able to be successful in achieving his intended goal. It's possible that a better trained, more dedicated, or more mentally stable individual could have carried out this attack successfully. We need to assess the current structure measures and target hardening at several critical infrastructure facilities compared to what the current threat actors are discussing in their online environments. Maloney was able to get within 30 yards approximately of the critical equipment at that power station. It's likely that damage to his vehicle brought it to a rest right there where it was, approximately 30 yards away where those spools of wire were before he ended up taking his own life. Maloney's case is another example of the growing online radicalization threat, especially in the growing nihilistic violent extremists and anti-data center dark web communities. LVMPD Emergency Management and CT are meeting with several energy partners next week to include Henderson, North Las Vegas, and a bunch of other partner agencies to discuss these concerns for the hardening of the security measures for these power facilities that are all over Nevada. And lastly, I would like to take a moment and talk about the communication flow on this one. From the onset, FBI Albany, FBI Las Vegas, Boulder City PD, Henderson PD, Las Vegas Las Vegas Metro Counterterrorism, and Las Vegas Metro Armor. It was seamless from the second we got out there. Everybody was communicating. There was a lot of information that was going back and forth, and we were able to dive pretty deep into this investigation in a very short amount of time and get a lot of answers. And most importantly, we showed that there was no more threat to the public. Is there any questions, sir? Governor, I think your mic's on mute, sir.
All right. Do we have any member questions of Lieutenant Thompson?
Good afternoon, Mike Matthews for the record. Fantastic overview, Cody. I appreciate it. Was there any evidence in reviewing all of his computer and his research and stuff on any other sites outside of Las Vegas, particularly for critical infrastructure, or was it just solely focused on what the Garden presented or some of those FERC or NERC reports had?
Sure. Yeah. He did mention several places in Boulder City. As far as critical infrastructure is concerned, he didn't mention anything else nationally critical infrastructure concerning wise. But due to some of those radical publications and stuff, he did have a lot of research into things nationally that would affect the United States on a large scale. He never mentioned anything specifically as far as a specific target. To include our target here in Boulder City, that was the only one that he mentioned later at the end with one of his end of life memos and some of his end of life planning. There was nothing that we found that listed any other locations that he specifically wanted to target. Some of his AI searches and stuff like that looked at critical infrastructure across the United States, and he just happened to pick this one for whatever reason.
Okay, I appreciate that. Follow-up question. Again, Mike Matthews for the record. Was there any evidence that he intended on hitting more than one substation, or was it just that was where he was going to go and that was going to be it, similar to the two substation attack in the Carolinas?
Yes, sir. I think in these forums and in some of the stuff that he was involved in, obviously they talk about that and in hitting multiple stations at the same time and what would be the ramifications and in how that could be effective in achieving their goal. But as far as his specific planning, no, he didn't have a plan or any kind of documentation said that he was going to attack more than one. But yeah, and he made it very clear that he intended to do this and then die in the act.
Very well. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none. Good job, Cody. Appreciate the information.
Thank you.
All right. With no further questions, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, Fuel Resiliency Committee. Chief Thompson.
Brett Thompson for the record. I'd like to provide a report out to the Commission on the Fuel Resilience Committee. Obviously, this committee was created by this commission in December of 2025. The committee has met 3 times to this point in January, March, and April, and we anticipate the next meeting being called in June. Currently have 30 members on the committee, 17 are voting, 13 are non-voting. I was elected as chair and the vice chair was elected as Miss Kathy Reheis Boyd. I would like to publicly thank her for all of her dedicated efforts. She does this in a volunteer capacity and she is really running a lot of the operations for me and I appreciate that. As far as content, we've had 2 closed sessions. In the closed sessions, we covered a presentation on the Nevada fuel environment and system and the related deficiencies and security. We also received a briefing from our industry partners on their current and future state of the fuel environment specific to their company to include opportunities, risks, and challenges they face. And then we did a presentation on emergency management and homeland security concerns and threats and areas in consideration. In open content, we discussed an update to the analysis that was provided in closed session. That analysis was dated as of 2023. And we decided to contract to have that analysis updated to be current and to project into the future. It will include confidential industry discussions and it will include recommendations that will inform our final report to you, Governor. The contract was put in place as of last week, and it will run concurrent with our public-facing efforts. The emphasis of the report and analysis will be on what can the Nevada government do to help industry decide to invest in a more resilient Nevada fuel ecosystem. We also received presentation on fuel regulation from Director Bocachia. We received additional briefings from industry on the friction points, barriers, and impediments related to building fuel resilience and redundancy here in Nevada, increasing capabilities and storage, or investing in our fuel ecosystem. We received an update on fuel impacts on air quality and how attainment of EPA emission standards can influence our fuel options. We received a briefing from Sawtooth Caverns on the long-term strategic storage options available to us. And we received an update on the state energy security plan from Director Helm. We received a presentation on the Presidential Energy Emergency Declaration and the President's memoranda related to Section 303 of the Defense Production Act. In our last briefing, we were informed by Kendra Morgan, who is working with Phillips 66, that they are moving forward with a Western Gateway pipeline that will move fuel from the central United States, particularly Illinois, Oklahoma, and Texas, through a reverse flow pipeline into Arizona and into Southern California. That will ultimately benefit from this by providing more diversification of fuel, less reliance on fuel that comes out of California or is imported into California. Does not help us with our resiliency problem if we have an earthquake or loss of power or any impacts to that particular pipeline that runs from Southern California to Las Vegas. Those are my updates, pending your questions, sir.
All right, do we have any questions? Chief Compton. Okay. We don't have any questions. We'll move on to agenda item number 9, Department of Homeland Security shutdown update. Is this a necessary item now, Brett, or?
Yes, sir. There's 2 items. There's 2 slides I'm going to walk you through. We're going to bring those slides up right now. All right, this is Brett Compton, OEM for the record. So there are 2 slides. First slide we're going to walk you through is the DHS shutdown effects. I think it's really important that the commission understand where we were and then where we go. Some significant changes and updates occurred Thursday of last week. So as I think most members of the commission are familiar, when President Trump first came into office, he directed an assessment of FEMA, and a review council was formed to generate a report and recommendations to him and to Congress on how to update operations of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which obviously provides the vast majority of the Homeland Security funding to the state of Nevada. I will cover the updates on the next slide. The report was released last week on May 7th. So during the shutdown, we experienced 118 days in the current federal fiscal year 25 in which we were not able to participate with our FEMA partners. Some of the effects are already briefed. As far as the online training system was shut down, which slowed down training here in the state of Nevada. More importantly, we were unable to provide reimbursements to all of our sub-grantees. That's provided a significant amount of challenges for all members of the emergency management and homeland security enterprise across the state as they have moved forward with projects, and I owe them money. In addition to that, we experienced some reduced communications. Simply, our partners were not at work and we were unable to answer questions, get clarification on the questions, or pursue extensions. As far as the grants, this body is obviously familiar with the situation we experienced last year in 2025. Typically, the grants are released in March of a year, and last year they were released in August. Typically, we have 60 days to go through that process. Last year, we had 13 days to approve the grants here in the state of Nevada. We are still at this point awaiting the release of the Homeland Security 25 grants to be able to start accessing and using those funds. We experienced a host of changing requirements. We started out with the initial 3-year periods of performance in the notice of funding opportunity. It was changed to 1 year in the initial awards and has now been returned back to a 3-year period of performance. We experienced additional terms and conditions that were leveraged. Those have since been removed. and we experienced a population certification requirement, which has since been removed. In addition to that, the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant was suspended and has just been reinstated, and we are going through the process of both 24 and 25 applications. In addition to the FEMA, we've seen a reduction in the FEMA workforce, and what the effects that we expect on that will be that we will see less FEMA assets available when there are concurrent major emergencies across the country. We've also seen a reduction in institutional knowledge of some of the most senior personnel in FEMA who have worked there for a career, have chosen to leave the workforce, and that will simply have some effects as we work through some of the more technical details with FEMA on future grants and responses. On a positive, in 2025, we did not receive any congressional project funding due to a continuing year resolution. However, with the approval of the 26 appropriation for DHS, State of Nevada will receive 7 congressionally delegated projects or designated projects to the tune of about $3.28 million. And as of yesterday, we are on our 4th acting administrator since the beginning of the Trump administration. I am excited about the 4th one. It is our regional administrator, Mr. Bob Fenton, is current acting FEMA administrator, and that is really positive for Nevada. There was a nomination made yesterday for a actual permanent administrator, and that is Mr. Cameron Hamilton, who is the first acting administrator in the current administration. Next slide. So last Thursday on the 7th, as a result of the shutdown coming to a conclusion, the FEMA Review Council was able to provide its recommendations that will go to the president for his decisions and action. And I would like to point out that there was a significant change in the verbology that we've heard over the last year. There was some discussion about eliminating FEMA. The recommendations go forward to the president as refocusing FEMA. What we did notice was, without a question, unambiguous messaging from the Review Council that the federal expectation is that states and locals will own disasters. We are being encouraged to be self-sufficient as states and to reduce reliance on federal funding exposure. The FEMA Review Council presentation or recommendations, there are 10 major recommendations with approximately 150 action items in their report. And the expectation we should have for FEMA in the future is that FEMA will be there for only the truly significant events, so in quotes from the report, that exceed state capabilities and resources. And they point out some of the emphasis, and this kind of goes along with what Director Underwood was talking about, is the nation state threats and some of the Chinese actions that we saw there in Las Vegas in the biolab. And so there's an emphasis from FEMA on Homeland Security and emergency response related to emerging threats, both technical as well as nation state, national security supply chains, and the continuity of government. And so really their focus is on response to war, earthquakes, major hurricanes, and those bigger events. We will see an increase in thresholds to receive federal disaster declarations. And one of the things that we should expect to see is a deductible type model in which the state of Nevada will have to pay a certain amount of money towards any disaster declaration before we are able to apply for a federal declaration. On a very positive note, we expect to see a change in disaster funding models, more towards a parametric model, which will allow us to receive direct reimbursement based on triggers. When we have a certain disaster with a certain level of destruction, we would receive a certain amount of money. Now that will put the state in the driver's seat on how do we spend that money, but it will not be able to cover all of the recovery that we will need to do. A very important message that also came through very clear from the federal government is that federal funding is not for sustainment. Federal funding is to build capabilities. Some of those capabilities will be directed by the federal government to align with their national interests of capabilities they want to enhance. And a good example of that would be the USAR task force that are located nationally. They will give us other ones that they would like us to focus on. But again, it's not for sustainment. They expect us to build capability and then absorb that into the state budget over time. In regards to hazard mitigation, they have proposed a transition to a new program called Refined Risk Reduction. This will result in a funding model change. On a positive note, the environmental reviews, which historically have taken some of the longest to get us into being able to spend money, will be passed down to the state. On a negative note, state will incur that cost to do that. It does allow us to receive some funds, sets of money within the first 30 days after a disaster for mitigation, and some funds of money within the 6 months. Right now, we're typically not seeing those types of funds until 27 months after a disaster. So this is faster access to money after a disaster, which is positive. In addition, in your pre-disaster mitigation, this is going to be expected to be managed more like a business. Shovel-ready projects that are pre-vetted, federal government will not pay for planning projects, and they will need to be infrastructure focused. We expect an increased cost share for states at approximately 50% dollar for dollar on every dollar given to us from the federal government. A very positive development will be a more effective and efficient streamlined individual assistance that consolidates payments to survivors. It'll be faster, it'll be less painful for them. However, it will only apply to people that have uninhabitable homes. We expect this to be implemented over the next 2 to 3 years, so within the Trump administration. We expect training to be pushed down to states to manage national standards, but state executed. A significant shift is we will be highly encouraged as a state to insure our public facilities through actual insurance companies versus self-insurance. Another significant shift will be the National Flood Insurance Program, and that will move towards a more privatized market. A very positive indication is a focus on whole community and public-private partnerships, which is very big deal here in the state of Nevada. And sir, we will be encouraged as a state to have a 5% cash reserve total compared to our state budget available for disasters. So those are the big ticket items. As the shutdown comes to a conclusion, we move forward and start getting back to business, and the recommendations that will go forward to the president. Obviously, the president has a lot of leeway and say on how that gets implemented and at what level. And a lot of that will have to do with Congress, which I suspect will most likely not occur until after the current election cycle. Any other questions, sir?
All right, do we have any questions of Mr. Compton? Hey, Brett, quick question. Since we haven't received the 2025 guidance, is that putting any of our personnel or programs in jeopardy for funding?
So we have all the guidance for 25. What we don't have is the investment justifications have not been cleared or released by FEMA for the Homeland Security grants. So what's happening is all that money has essentially been spent in many ways by jurisdictions, and we owe them reimbursements. But some of the specialized categories, such as the border support missions, which will involve construction there at Las Vegas Metro and in Washoe County, can't even be started until those are released. And I think the second part of your question I'm going to anticipate is the 2026 releases. We expect to see those within the next 50 days from FEMA, and we expect to have a compressed timeline, but not compressed like we experienced last year for the 26 grants.
Okay, good. So, but I'm sure we can anticipate, well, never mind. It could work either way on the total amount given. All right, no questions, Chief Compton from any members? All right, hearing none. We'll move on to the second opportunity for public comment under agenda item number 10. Is there anybody there in Carson City wishing to provide public comment?
No public comment in Carson City, sir.
Anybody in Las Vegas? All right, anybody online or on the phone that we're aware of?
None seen, sir.
All right, Samantha, let me know when I can move on.
A lot of pressure.
No, just look at your phone.
Let's just give it a second and then you can close out the meeting.
Sure. Hey, since we got most of the people still on the line, I want to commend everybody on your presentations today. It was very informative. I think we learned more in today's meeting than we have in quite some time. So appreciate all that.
Thanks for the delay. I think anyone that wanted to make public comment could.
Okay. All right. This is also opportunity for any member wishing to make a comment. All right, hearing none, I will make a motion for adjournment. Can I get a second?
Second, Patty Wade.
All right,
Second, Patty Wade.
Thank you, Patty. All right, we have a motion for adjournment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any against, nay? Hearing none, motion passes. Everybody enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you for your